Hi all. I hope you all have had a good week so far. It's Wednesday. We are halfway through this week. So a couple things before we get too far into this. If you haven't already checked your grades and see what you are missing, I know there are a few assignments that I still need to grade for you guys, so I'm trying to get those finished soon. If you look in Power School and you see anything that says 0 out of whatever points it is, that means I never got it from you. So if you would, or if you want to, you have today, tomorrow, and Friday to get those things done and turned in. Because the grading period ends Friday. So after Friday, grades are done for the first 9 weeks, and we will start the second 9 weeks after fall break. So just keep that in mind. Um, so without further ado, let us get into where we are going next, and that is talking about the area of India and Pakistan after the decline of the Indus River Valley civilization. If you remember from the video you watched yesterday, there are a couple of theories as to why the Indus River Valley kind of declined, and then the different groups from the Caucasus region, known as the Aryans, came in, and those are the modern descendants of India. So people in India and Pakistan today can trace their ancestry back to this group of Aryans, as they're called. And so once the Aryans settled, we started seeing the foundation of one of the world's first religions. Before I tell you what it is, I want to start here with this nice lady here. So I just want to see what you think this is. So kind of brainstorm, think what you might be, look at what you notice, look at what's down here, look at what she's doing. What do you think this could represent? And more importantly, what do you think it is? Um, I'll talk about who this is here shortly, but just kind of keep this person in the back of your mind as we go forward. So we are going to move into talking about Hinduism. And it is one of the world's first major religions that we will talk about. So exactly where did it come from? So Indian history has a series of Vedas, as they're called, or short stories, that talk about how India was divided into four varnas, or social divisions. Think classes. So we talked about this in Mesopotamia a little bit with their social class system. How you had the king at the top, then you had the priest, then you had the everybody else, and then you had slaves at the bottom. If you remember, under the Indus River Valley, we don't think they had a class system, but after the Aryans showed up, they definitely developed a class system. And there's the Indian word for it is Varna, and Varna is just the word, our way of saying social division, social classes. Um, and the Vedas are just a series of short stories that talk about the Varnas, if you will. This system actually becomes what we will today call the caste system. And we'll spend quite a bit of time on the caste system today. But this caste system is basically the class system in India, both ancient India and even into modern, like today, India. It's dominated Indian culture and religion ever since it was introduced in the Vedas, 3,000 years ago. It's just dominated Indian culture. So there are four original Vedas, and then eventually a fifth, or four Varnas, sorry. And then eventually a fifth was added, known as Dalit, or untouchable. So Hinduism essentially develops out of the Vedas, if you will, out of these short stories. So one of the things that Hindus believe is that they are polytheistic. Hindus, people who practice Hinduism, believe in multiple different gods. There are literally, I believe, thousands of different Indian gods or goddesses. three of the main gods that you need to be concerned with, because I mean we could spend a whole year talking about just all the other ones, but the three you need to worry about is Brahma, this one up here. He is known as the creator. He's the one who is believed to have created life, created plants, animals, people. Life as we know it, Hindus believe came from Brahma. Shiva, also known as the destroyer, is the statue I showed you at the beginning. Oh. So this is Shiva, and she is known as the destroyer. And then we have Vishnu down here. Vishnu is the preserver. He's the one, or he or she, is the one believed to preserve the world's existence, preserve life. So part of the Hindu tradition is that they believe that all the gods are part of a single universal spirit known as a Brahman. And these three are the three major components of the Brahman. And they believe that all the gods make up part of the Brahman. And the Brahman is like the supreme spirit, if you will. And so part of being a Hindu is believing in this idea of the caste system. And the Varnas, remember that's the word for social division, are broken into four main categories. The first one, and I want to point to that all of these different Varnas make up a part of the human body, if you will. And you'll see what I mean by that here in a second. But to start off, we have the Brahmins at the top. Those are the priests, the academics, think you're like scientists, your lawyers, your researchers, those people, and priests are at the top. They make up the brain, essentially. Then you have the Kshatriyas, who are the warriors, the kings, queens, rulers, and fighters. You notice they kind of make up the shoulder, chest area of the person. Then we have, in the middle, we have the Vaisyas, who are the farmers, the craftspeople, and traders. So they make up kind of the midsection, the thighs of a person. And then the last part of the human body that we are going to point out in part last of Varna is known as Sudras. And those are laborers, so just your ordinary day workers, and non-Aryans. So people who are not of Aryan descent are automatically put in the Sudra category, and they are down here at the bottom in like the feet. They're the ones doing all the heavy lifting, and so therefore they are the feet of the Brahmin. And I want to point out that I said there were 5 Varnas, and so the 4 that we just talked about, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, make up the human body. There is a 5th one that is outside of the body, of the spirit, of the Brahman, if you will. And those are known as Dalits, or simply untouchables. And they do the jobs that no one else wants to do. And when I don't use the word untouchables lightly, like Indian society, some even today, still do not associate themselves with untouchables. They believe that if you are a Kshatriya up here and you accidentally come in contact with a Brahmin or a Dalit, even accidentally, you can automatically lose your status up here and be sent all the way down here to the untouchables. At one point, there were over 3,000 different Varnas or sections in Indian society, but we're just going to keep it simple at these 4 plus the untouchables here. So this is different. The caste system is different from the other social classes that we have talked about before. Your position in society, whether it was one of these 4 up here or if you were an untouchable, was pretty much permanent. And you could not change it in this life. There's a way to change it in the next life, and we'll talk about here in a second. But they believe that you were born into a class, and that was where you stayed. You could not do anything to get out of it. There was no working your way up into a next class. It was, you were born a Kshatriya at the top. Cool, you're outstanding, you're awesome. You were born an untouchable, and sorry about you. Like I said, there's a way to change that, but it involves dying, and we'll talk about it in a second. I do want to point out too that originally this was the way it was, like that was no movement, whatever. But as time has gone on and we've gotten into more recent, more modern times, this system has become a little bit more flexible in allowing movement from one class to another. So it's easier to move now than it was back then, but it's still incredibly difficult. So why did they have this? Why did they allow this to develop? So this was seen as a way to maintain societal order. And eventually these classes came along with a series of rules or sutras that were designed to make sure people stayed within their varna, their division, if you will. Some examples of these rules are that you could not marry outside your caste system. So if you wanted to marry a Vaisya and you were an untouchable, sorry about you. If an upper level Varna could marry down, but they would forfeit their top tier status and then become whatever their spouse is. So most people didn't do that. You could not eat with another you could not eat with another caste person. So Kshatriyas could not eat with Brahmins. Brahmins could, or not. Yeah, you couldn't eat with another caste, another Varna, if you will. So untouchables could not eat with Vaisyas. Vaisyas could not eat with Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas could not eat with so on. If people broke the rules outlined in these sutras, they could be forced to become an untouchable. So you could move down in a Varna, but you could not move up. Untouchables were not a part of the 4 original Varnas, and thus this meant they were the lowest of the low and did jobs that no one else wanted. Like, we're talking trash pickups, street sweepers, jobs that most people wouldn't want. So I mentioned earlier that Hindus believed, and Aryans who developed this system believed, that it was meant to be to stay in your class forever. There were ways around this, and I'm sure you guys have probably recognized these 2 words here, at least this one, at least karma, you should. So part of the Hindu faith is believing in the ideas of reincarnation and karma. So Hindus believe in this idea of reincarnation, which means that when we, and like I say, we as in people, animals, plants, when we die, our soul can be reborn into a new spirit, new person, or an animal in the next life here on earth. So essentially our physical body dies, but our spirit is reincarnated into something else. Where your spirit ended up in the next life after reincarnation depended on a person's karma. So a karma is the effects that good or bad actions have on a person's soul. So they believe that the more good you do, the better your karma will be, which will then allow you to get a better reincarnation in the next life. So you do good things, you're a good person, you have good karma. The thought is that you could eventually, when you die this life, be reincarnated into something better in the next life. Now, the same is said for being a bad person. If you are a bad person, you do bad things, you have bad karma, you can be born into a lesser life in the next one. So really, you're living this life in preparation for your next. And by doing good things, you improved your chances of having a better life. By doing bad things, you kind of lower those chances. So this will be all we have for today. Kind of the angle I want you to think about here is, do you think this idea of the caste system was a positive or negative aspect on any society? So did it benefit Indian society when the Aryans came in and put this system in place, or did it kind of negatively impact their social standing or their society? So something to think about as we go on. The assignment is on the next page of the module. And other than that, if you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I hope you all have a good rest of the day, and I will see you all tomorrow.